Hello, Tall James. What do you think will happen between Spurs and Arsenal tomorrow before we hear from the respective coaches?
Well, okay, easy one to start. Look, I mean, I think it's obviously a very competitive game in that I think had Arsenal not suffered the injuries that they had during the international break and just before it, I think they would have been clear favourites for this game. But I think losing Odegaard is I mean, Arteta's sort of playing coy about whether he's going to be fit or not. All the noises we're hearing are that he's not going to be available for that game. So I think that's a significant blow for them because he's the kind of player that they can't really replace. You could argue Bukayo Saka, William Saliba, maybe slightly more important, but I just think Odegaard knits it all together in a way that they don't have another player who can do that, particularly when they've sold Emil Smith-Rowe, who probably would have been a logical replacement, and also Fabio Vieira's out on loan is another one who could have come into that central position. So I think it maybe just slightly tilts the balance more 50-50 than it being in Arsenal's favour. But I mean, I'm going to sit on the fence here and say it's a draw. That's going to be my prediction at the end of this. But I would have had Arsenal to win this game had they not suffered those injuries. And obviously, the Declan Rice suspension is another big issue for them in midfield.
Sure. Plenty to talk about in this game. Of course, it's Sunday, not Saturday. Southampton Man United's the early game on Saturday. So let's hear what Ange Postecoglou and Mikel Arteta have been talking about to James before this one.
I'm really happy, really excitement. I think it shows the alignment between the club and myself and the coaching staff, that we are in this journey together, that we enjoy working together, that we have much higher ambitions, that we want to fulfill them. So that's the way that I look at it. And as I said, really, really pleased and grateful as well.
Yeah, I think consistency in approach and mentality. I think in the last, you've seen them in the last 2 years, in particular, that they've just had a real relentlessness about them. They haven't had to change their team too much. They've been, there's a solid core there that have sort of carried them through the last 2 years, and I think that gives you belief over time. So I think in every game they feel like they can win. I think they have this confidence in themselves now that they can challenge over a course of a Premier League season, which, I think that more than anything else, allows you to kind of build momentum season to season, where you can do it over a whole course of a season. They have the last 2 years. Their form over the last 2 years in totality has been outstanding. So they're going to be a tough nut to crack, but a great opportunity for us to do that.
We need some more tests, so let's see what happens in the next day or so, this afternoon probably, and see what happens, what is the extent of the injury, and how quickly we can get him back. He's super positive about everything. We know Martin, he wants to be there every single day, but we have to wait and see.
Okay, plenty to get to here. We'll touch on Mikel Arteta's new contract shortly, but James, you were asking the questions. And when it was with regards to Odegaard, I want to give you a quote from the Norwegian national team doctor, Olley, who basically said that he's going to be out for at least 3 weeks, yet Mikel Arteta isn't ruling him out for Sunday. How does that work?
It's what he does. It's what Arteta does, particularly before the big games. He has been, how do we put this diplomatically, coy about his team selection and team availability in the past. I mean, I'll give you a recent example. He told us that pretty much everyone was available before the international break, and then after the game, it turned out that Gabby Jesus had done an injury in training on the Thursday. Well, that press conference to preview that game was on the Friday, so we already knew that he was injured, but he told us that everybody was available. So this is the kind of thing that you're dealing with. It's very, very different, actually, to Postecoglou, because if you watch that Postecoglou presser today, I was at Mikel's at a very similar time, so I couldn't get to both. But, Postecoglou starts his team news by sort of saying, well, Solanke's been training with us this week, he's okay. Van der Ven's been training with us this week, he's okay. Sarr probably out, Richarlison's definitely out. And then you listen to Arteta and he says, I'm not sure about Odegaard, even though the guy was literally on crutches 2 days ago. And also he's sort of suggesting that Calafiori might be available. And my information there is that there is absolutely no chance that Calafiori is going to be fit for that game. And from what I'm told from the sources that I speak to around Odegaard, I think they feel it's extremely unlikely that he would be involved against Spurs. And as the Norway doctor suggests, that it might be 2 or 3 weeks. The only thing to say about, as the guys will know about, ankle injuries is they can look very bad and then after a couple of days when the swelling goes down and the scans are repeated, it can look a lot better, and maybe someone can get back quicker than originally thought. But I would be stunned if Odegaard played on Sunday.
Shaka, without Odegaard and Declan Rice suspended, how do Arsenal look as far as their style of play might differ from normal?
I'm not sure, and I think that's a big question. And we had a probable lineup on the FC show last night, and we had Partey and Jorginho as the midfielders filling in, just given the injuries that Arsenal are currently dealing with. And with the greatest respect, as good players as they both are, just two of them together against a high-pressing Spurs team, high-tempo Spurs team, I'll be concerned. I'll be concerned about whether they've got the legs, whether they've got the pace to cope with what Postecoglou's sides look like. And that, for me, is the big question. How do Arsenal, kind of given how good their midfield always is, how their midfield dictates the games, and James is right, Odegaard is a big part of that. I'm not sure how they cope. Had this been somebody else, had this been a lesser team, I probably wouldn't have the concerns that I do about Arsenal for this particular one. And then further to that point, and while Declan Rice is just a one-game suspension, Odegaard, do you chance it at all? If even there is a chance, despite what everybody else is saying, you've got Champions League to come in midweek. You've got Manchester City next weekend. Do you chance Odegaard given those games? I think right now you don't even take that chance, regardless of what Mikel Arteta may want to suggest.
Okay, Dalen, let's take a look at the potential Arsenal lineup, middle to front. Is it a case of simply dropping Kai Havertz back alongside Partey and Jorginho, or whoever he goes, and putting in Gabriel Jesus, who it looks like will be available, or Leandro Trossard, with Martinelli on the left and Shaka on the right? Or do you think he's got something else in mind?
Before we show the lineup, I do want to make sure we're clear on this, guys. So this is the shirt I'm actually wearing today. That's what I was really wearing. But I'm a professional, so I changed my shirt, all right? I'm not LME. I changed my shirt for the show. So everything I say prediction-wise, you can take that maybe with a grain of salt. I am a gooner, if you will. All right, in terms of the lineup, yes, I do think that's the safe choice, is to put Partey and Jorginho. It might look more like a 4-2-3-1, drop Havertz there and play that way if you're on the road. And typically, as Shaq just said, the press that they're going to see and the pace at which it's going to be played, it's concerning. If you wanted to get creative, you could do things different. If you remember, Shaka did play in the midfield, kind of a 10 position 3-4 years ago. Kind of we came into the team at times. You could do something like you could do that. He loves Sterling. We know that. He's been really excited to have Sterling there and throw him into the mix too, and maybe leave Havertz up top. It's a number of different options he can have, and we don't know what it's going to look like. I think the safest is what we already said, Jorginho, Partey, and then you put Havertz kind of in front of them in kind of a 4-2-3-1 setup initially. What I'm concerned about is what Shaq just touched on. Last year, this is the most critical week of the season early on and may set the tempo in two different competitions. This is 3 straight road games against your rival. You got to go to Atlanta in the middle of the week in Champions League, and then you have City at the weekend. This is the worst time to have this happen. Now, in Declan Rice's position, that was just stupid, and that he will be back in the team. But that was a dumb mistake. For Odegaard, I think he is their most important guy. James, you touched on Saliba. Absolutely critical. And last year he blogged, I think, every single minute. So, they were fortunate in last year to have him. But we saw when Saliba wasn't available 2 years ago, how this team changes. That's a problem. He's huge. But Odegaard's still like the heart and soul of this team. He is their captain. He kind of unlocks so many different things on the offensive side of the ball for them and makes them kind of be who they are going forward. So without him in the lineup, which he didn't have that problem last year, he played almost every match. Declan Rice started all but one match last year. They were very fortunate in terms of injuries to make that charge and to challenge City. That has already proven to not be the case right now. We're forgetting Mikel Merino's not available either. If he was, he'd be in the lineup too. We wouldn't be talking. He would be starting in the middle of the park. So they've had the injury bug. I think he goes with a safe bet. That's why I think you may not see as many goals as the prognosticators in the betting lines assume in this match, because especially on the road, under Arteta the last 2 years, Arsenal's had a great road defensive record. And that is where this team is strongest right now with their injuries, is their back line, is their solidity, and Raya playing very well, whether with his hands or his feet, holding everything down. So I think this team is really stout back to from the back. We'll see what happens in the midfield where the game could be won and lost. We'll see. But I don't think there's going to be a ton of goals because this is going to be a little bit of a different game.
Yeah, we'll check the odds later towards the prediction. We'll run over a little bit. Hopefully that's okay with the producers. If you see a black screen, then you know it's not, but it's nothing to do with us. By the way, a quick quiz question for James, but it involves Dalen showing and holding up a bit of show and tell what you've just done with the jersey. Can you do that again?
Let's go, baby. Hey.
There we go. Right, James, that jersey and 1986. Why? What have they got in common? Or a similar jersey to that one with a red kind of badge?
Oh, okay. Would this be the last time that Arsenal didn't wear red in this game?
Exactly. It's going to be weird. It's going to be Spurs in white against Arsenal in black with red and yellow and green trim. That's because the Premier League and PGMOL have said there's too much white on the Arsenal kit. Welcome to the world that we live in nowadays, boys and girls. Yes. Anyway, James, Spurs, how different a team are they? Not how much better a team are they, but how different a team are they when they've got Solanke as a focal point in attack?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because actually, if you look at the way they've started this season, they've been quite similar to last season in that they've created an awful lot of chances. I think they've had the second most shots so far in the Premier League. Okay, it's only 3 games, but that sort of onus on the attacking intent and the willingness to go and try and make the running home and away wherever they play is still very much there. And Postecoglou was frustrated last season by how profligate they were in front of goal, and I think that's the key reason why they then went and spent £65 million on a centre forward. He's the one who's supposed to solve that problem. Obviously, he's had a bit of an injury to start the season, but the news today is that he's trained all week. And again, I'd be very surprised if he didn't start this game, given that training block he's had. Because he's the one that's got to go and make the difference. He's the one that's got to go and translate that dominance in terms of possession and territorial advantage onto the score sheet, which Spurs have not done habitually. And as I say, Postecoglou on several occasions last season was very frustrated by it and reiterated that sentiment. I'm thinking most recently against Newcastle when they somehow contrived to lose that game.
Arsenal have won their last twice at Spurs, having not won away from home since 2014 before that. Do you expect, Shaka, something similar to the last time they were there, where they ran up a 3-0 lead in just 38 minutes, or with Odegaard probably missing and Rice suspended, and with Spurs with Solanke back? Are you expecting this one to be a lot tighter?
Short answer is I expect this one to be a whole lot tighter. I just feel that things are looking up for Spurs in the same way they're not for Arsenal. While we're talking about Declan Rice's suspension and Odegaard's injury, Marino's injury, it's the exact opposite for Spurs. They welcome back Solanke, Van de Ven. There's suggestion that even Bissouma might be available for selection, and I just think psychologically that's a huge boost. And then kind of given Arsenal coming off that draw before the international break, and this fixture, I feel it feels bigger for Spurs than it does for Arsenal. Arsenal have their sights set on Manchester City on the top of the table. Arsenal know they're not quite in that stratosphere just yet, but a North London derby goes an awful long way to appeasing a significant section of their fan base while they work their way to becoming title contenders. So I think this is one that current analysts on this chat may want to disagree or may not want to hear. I'm thinking Spurs here 2-1, but as ever on these FC Live shows, it comes with the caveat that I may change my mind by the time okay. We sit down for FC in a few hours' time.
Well, you know what, Shaq? I haven't got to predictions yet, so it's going to give you an opportunity to give another prediction in about 2 minutes. You can go against that, and then you can say, well, I was right no matter what. Because I want to talk Arteta just briefly with Dalen, who may or may not have an allegiance to a certain team in North London. Deal till 2027. There's a good chance that Arsenal will have won the league by then under his tenure. If they don't, will he, whenever he leaves Arsenal, be forever known as the man that might have won the title if they'd signed a striker? If they don't do it,
there's a lot of hypotheticals in there.
Oh,
the one you assume they win by 2027 made my heart flutter when you said that. But let's see if that could actually happen. Yeah, I think if that plays out where they never sign a striker, and if it doesn't happen by 2027, then yeah, I think you could argue that the boardroom was complicit in the demise of the team. Not the demise, but I guess the inability to fulfill their full potential, because it seems like everything is there. That's just been the repeated point of, can they figure that out? Now, I do think Kai Havertz is fit really well there, but to put an elite striker in that position and be willing to splash the cash to do it could change the equation here. And these guys, again, are all young by and large and should be here and could stay. This whole group can stay intact through the end of that contract, and I hope they do. And that would be the missing piece sign. So he's the right coach. He's the right manager. He was since they first hired him, and he went through some ups and downs early on. But yeah, that strike piece seems to be the one element we've yet to been able to solve with still having good results.
Okay, let's get to the prediction. It's very kind of James to be on a delayed train, get off in some leafy suburb, whether it's, let's read, Earlsfield, East Dulwich, or Chiswick, and stand beside that tree and talk to us. Is it any one of those three leafy suburbs, James?
No, that is exactly what I've done. But no, I'm in North London, not in. I thought I'd come to North London, right? I mean, just to do this. That's the commitment that I have. I've just come into North London to do this, and then I'm going to go home again.
Unbelievable. So you can start with the prediction. What are you going to go for?
I'm going. Well, as I said earlier, I'm going to say draw. I'm going to say 1-1. I think. Okay. I just think one other very quick point to make about the midfield. Yes. Arsenal's midfield is I just wanted to mention Ethan Nwaneri, because there are a few noises that he might get some game time. Again, I'd be very surprised if he started, but I just think he's worth mentioning as a possible alternative. Just because Arsenal have talked a lot about trying to give their academy players more of a chance this season. I don't think Tottenham away was probably the game they had in mind when they were talking about that. But, an opportunity, the sort of cards have fallen here that he could throw Nwaneri into what obviously be the biggest game of his young career. Not sure it'll happen, but I just think we should just flag that as a possible option. But yeah, I'm going to go 1-1 and Spurs to take a point.
Shaka, I'm going to offer you the opportunity to do something I don't think you've ever done yet, and that's have a different prediction on the same show as you've previously given a prediction. So what do you reckon, Shaka, for the North London derby?
No, I've never had a different prediction on the same show. I've had 3 different predictions in 3 different shows, all about the same game. So I'm sticking with my 2-1.
Okay. And Dalen, we'll finish with you, and you get your own full screen graphics to read through as well.
Feel great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, let's again, objectively speaking here, the value is on the draw, as James just pointed out, or Tottenham, the home team with better health. As Shaq pointed out, this may mean more to Spurs and where they are in their project than where this means to Arsenal right now. That's the value if you're getting that type of price. I think the under, to James's point, I think you see a 1-1 game is likely what is I think could play out here. So I like the under 2.5 goals, and you got a good value in that too. So a lot of plus money on this screen. But your boy here is going to be betting on Arsenal, and we're going to be rooting for Arsenal. There will be no emotional hedge here. Okay, that's the bias. I'm not emotionally hedging. I'm just going all in. We're going to bet the plus 130. We're going to take the win or the loss, and let's go Gunners, and let's see what happens.